Staying safe in the late summer heat as temperatures top 30 degrees here in the capital, and health officials warn of increased pressure on the NHS.
Well, here today didn't quite, after all, bring us the hottest day of the year. Forecasters now say later in the week is more likely for that. It was the hottest September day for 7 years, though, and amber heat warnings remain in place across much of England. Now, the current heatwave can be dangerous for vulnerable people and animals, of course, and it does pose problems for farmers too. But for some, the sunshine is, they say, better late than never. Our correspondent Martin Stew is in Southend. Martin.
Well, it's an absolutely gorgeous day here today. Bittersweet, though, I guess, for all those students who've gone back to school and their beleaguered parents who are probably thinking, why didn't this happen during those summer holidays? As you mentioned, we are now officially in a heatwave. We've had a string of days more than 5 degrees above average. But here today on the beach, it was largely pensioners, preschoolers and the preschoolers' parents who were soaking up the sun. There's no better way to cool off than a splash by the sea. Eliana, one of the lucky ones, not to be at school or in the office.
I took a day off for today for them, especially to enjoy the weather today, yeah.
Southend Beach sparkling in September sunshine as temperatures in the UK hit 32 degrees.
Oh, it's great. It's 30 degrees outside. Couldn't stay inside all day. No way. No chance.
We've not had a very good summer, to be fair. I thought that was it. And then this was a nice little surprise. So we thought we'd head out to the beach and enjoy the day.
For many seasonal businesses, profit has been blown away by our soggy summer. Today's sunshine, better late than never. The Seafood Shack even upping its order of mussels in anticipation of strong sales.
Really, really thankful. It's like a switch sometimes. If the sun comes out, we can go from having a few covers to being completely full restaurant.
Whilst for many this late summer sunshine might be a bonus, heat waves do actually have a serious health impact. Compared to things like storms and snow, actually far more people die in the heat than in the cold. An amber health warning has been issued for much of the country. Many places will see overnight so-called tropical temperatures of around 20 degrees. That puts added pressure on people's bodies, which have to work harder to cool down, a risk particularly for older people.
Look at that.
No wonder ice creams and ice drinks were the order of the day at Hamble Heights in Southampton.
We have residents on fluid charts so we can monitor their daily intake of fluids, which is very important, especially in weather like we are seeing currently.
This year's seen plenty of extremes. Just ask a farmer. After a spring drought and a sodden summer, at last the weather is playing ball for them.
This weather is actually really good for farmers that have struggled to get their crops in, so this is great.
Temperatures are nowhere near the 40 degrees we hit last summer, but if, as expected, we surpass 32.2 degrees on Saturday, that will be only the 5th time the hottest day of the year has been recorded in September. Martin Stew, ITV News, Southend.
Now, this Saturday could prove to be the UK's hottest day this year, with temperatures expected to peak after this week's mini heatwave. The highest temperature this year so far was in June when it hit 32.2 degrees Celsius. Now the thermometer is rising again. It comes as European climate change scientists say 2023 is on course to be the hottest in human history. Well, our climate editor, Justin Rolat, joins us now from close to the River Thames in a rather balmy-looking Richmond in Surrey.
Yes, quite a few people out here enjoying the last of the sunshine, and just look at the view. But it isn't sweltering everywhere. West Yorkshire, Cornwall, Devon and parts of Wales are all officially in heatwave already, but it is a bit colder further north. That said, an amber heat warning has been issued for much of England. That will stay in place until Sunday. So how unusual is this weather, and what role is climate change playing? After a wet and cloudy July and August, it isn't surprising people are making the most of this hot spell. We do often get warm days in September, but, says the Met Office, this is different.
This is unusual because of the length and the intensity of the heat. This heat wave is lasting for a number of days. We've broken 30 Celsius for the past 2 days, and we're likely to continue to break 30 Celsius probably for the next 5 or 6 days, and that would be record-breaking for the consecutive days over 30 Celsius. Also, the nighttime temperatures. The warmest night of the year earlier in the week, and the next couple of nights temperatures again likely to stay over 20 Celsius, what we call tropical nights.
Global temperatures have only increased by just over 1 degree centigrade. So why are we seeing heat waves like we're experiencing now happening so much more often? Here is the science bit. Over to you, Professor.
So here's the key curve. This is the probability of a temperature of a given magnitude in the UK. It's got a peak in the middle, which is where the most likely temperatures are. That's the mean temperature typically. But what it tells you is what the likelihood is of a temperature exceeding 30 degrees. And that's determined by the area under the curve. OK, so now let's look at the effect of climate change. That shifts the curve over. So the peak is moved over by about the warming we've had about 1 and a bit degrees here. And look what it does to the probability of there being a temperature greater than 30 degrees. It's massively larger, just by a small shift in the mean. And also, there's much more chance of getting very, very high temperatures, maybe 35 or 40 degrees.
Warm weather may be fun if you can jump in a pool, not so much if you have to work outdoors. The NHS is preparing for an uptick in patients with heat-related conditions. People with pre-existing respiratory or cardiovascular disease are at particular risk. And be warned, in many parts of the UK it will get hotter in the coming days. Justin Rowlatt, BBC News, London.
The Met Police Commissioner speaking today. Stay safe in this late summer heat. That's the message from public health officials as the scorching September sun is set to continue into the weekend. An amber heat health alert is in place until Sunday, meaning weather conditions could affect the whole population, not just the most vulnerable, and could put a strain on the NHS. If you do need some respite from the heat, there are some free places that Londoners can go. Returning now to this September scorcher across the capital today. Looks peaceful there, doesn't it? Probably nudging into the 30s where you are. Well, Kew Gardens peaked at 32 degrees Celsius. The heat is expected to continue over the next few days, and forecasters are now saying Saturday could record the highest temperature of the year.
Nowhere is the heat felt more than on the Underground. At Oxford Circus Station this afternoon, we recorded 33 degrees on the platform, making it uncomfortable for passengers and staff alike. Rags Martel reports from a very hot and sweaty tube network.
In the midday sun, the only place hotter is Underground. We're going down to find London's warmest tube. Armed with a thermometer, our first stop is the Bakerloo line. On board, the heat rises fast, climbing from 28 and steadily up past the 30s. So I've just spent 5 minutes travelling on the Bakerloo line, and the temperature now reads 32 degrees. That's 2 degrees higher than it's legal to transport cattle. In packed carriages, commuters fan themselves, but the heat is too much.
How hot was it? Very hot. Sweating. Inhumane.
Way too hot, way too hot. We need some AC or something. I think everywhere in Britain needs to get AC now. It's too hot too much of the year now, yeah.
Can you describe how hot it was?
Oh, it was baking, yeah. It was so hot.
Do you know how hot it was?
It's obvious.
32
degrees.
It's boiling.
Sweating, bro. Yeah, as I was saying earlier, it's like a sauna in there.
Our next stop, the Central line. And that's when things get even hotter. We record a temperature of 33 degrees.
We have tube tunnels which are deep underground. The heat builds up over time as those trains operate. And when the tunnels were built, in some cases over a century ago now, the ventilation shafts really weren't put in place to sort of deal with the intensity that we operate today.
Isn't it embarrassing that in 2023 we don't have air conditioning?
We're working really hard to make sure that we get air conditioning across our services.
The official Transport for London advice is to carry a bottle of water when it's this hot. And our final stop, the Victoria line, which has the highest average temperature of all the tube lines. Our reading here is 32 degrees.
So I've just come off the Victoria line and I'm literally dripping with sweat. It's hot.
Rags Martel, ITV News, on the Underground.